Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening. I apologize for being 3 minutes late getting going tonight, but I would like to welcome everybody here for our regular council meeting for March the 8th, and also welcome those that are watching at home on live stream, and let you know that we are audio, video recording, and live streaming this meeting on the town's YouTube channel, and it shall form part of the record which will be retained according to the town's retention bylaw. And if you'd like more information about that bylaw, you can find it out from the clerk's office. And I will now go to Councillor Saunders, who will deliver our land acknowledgement statement.
The town of Innisfil acknowledges that the town of Innisfil is situated on treaty lands that is steeped in rich Indigenous history. The town also acknowledges that this land is traditional territories of the first people of Turtle Island. It is shared between the Anawashibi people of Beausoleil First Nations, Chippewa of Rama First Nations, and Chippewa of Georgina Island First Nations. And we thank them for the generous stewardship. This meeting place is still the home of too many Indigenous people, and as settlers, we are grateful to have the opportunity to work with this land. The town acknowledges the forced sacrifices that they are founded by the Canadian society today. We are dedicated to honoring Indigenous history and culture and committed to moving forward in the spirit of reconciliation and respect with all nations, Métis and Inuits.
Thank you, Councillor Saunders. Next is item 2, the open forum. Is there anybody, we're going to check to see if there's anybody signed up for the open forum this evening. Thank you. So the open forum is just a 2-minute session, so that comes on our agenda a little later, and we'll make sure you're on there. Thank you. So there's nobody signed up for the open forum. We'll then go to approval of the agenda and ask for a mover and a seconder. We do have an amendment to the agenda. We have 2 additional delegations this evening, and I would ask for a mover and a seconder to approve. Councillor Drodge and Councillor Richardson. All those in favor? That's carried. Next, I would ask if there's any disclosures of interest, any disclosures or pecuniary interest on any item on tonight's agenda. I'm seeing none, but if one becomes apparent to you through the meeting, please let us know at that time, and the clerk's office will make the necessary arrangements. Next is item 5, presentations and petitions. There are none. And next is item 6, delegations. And our first delegation is by Mr. Craig Binning from Hempson Associates. Mr. Binning, welcome to council, and whenever you're ready.
It's a pleasure to be before council and the public this evening. What I'd like to do over the next 10 or 15 minutes is introduce the community benefits charge. It's a new piece of legislation and a new tool that the city or the town is looking to explore. I'm just going to provide you with an introduction and an overview of the legislative framework around community benefits charge, which I'll short form as CBC. And then I'm going to get right into the work that we've been doing with your staff to develop the strategy and ultimately the bylaw that we'll bring back before council. What the CBC is part of what I call 3 pillars available to municipalities to fund what we refer to as growth-related capital costs associated with development. We're typically now using the short-form growth funding tools. These are mechanisms that allow the town to recover that initial round of capital costs associated with meeting the increased needs arising from development. The prime tool is the development charges one, the left one there. And we are currently working with you on that as well, and we'll be back in the coming months to talk about it. The town has a long tradition of levying development charges and using them to the best of their ability. On the other side of the spectrum is the Planning Act, Parkland Dedication, and Cash in Lieu provisions, which the town has also used historically, and we are looking at updating and reviewing that with yourselves as well. And the middle one is the one that I'm going to talk with you today, and it's a new tool made available once again under the Planning Act, and it's levied mostly against higher density residential development. And I'll get into that in a few minutes as we move through the presentation. It's important to note all of these tools require the town to have a bylaw in place for each of the 3 tools. All of those bylaws are appealable to the Ontario Land Tribunal, so we need to ensure that the policies and the bylaws are consistent with the legislative frameworks. So just getting a little bit into this community benefits charge. Under the Planning Act, there's Section 37. Prior to the CBCs, it was referred to as density bonusing, and what that meant was if a developer owned a piece of land, and let's say it was zoned to allow 5 or 10 stories, if they wanted to construct something larger, say 20 stories, they could come to the town to request that rezoning and redesignation of that land. If the municipality was open to that, they could ask the developer to make additional contributions towards the community impacts associated with allowing that increased height and density. That provision has now been replaced with this new tool, the Community Benefits Charge, which is a broader-based tool, but still restricted to higher density buildings, which are 5 or more stories and have 10 or more residential units. And I'll talk a little bit more about the structure of the charge. The legislative framework requires us to have what's referred to as a CBC strategy. The development charge terminology would be a background study, and it's very similar in nature. And the important thing is that it does need to have a bylaw. The use of this provision is restricted to single-tier municipalities and local municipalities. So the County of Simcoe cannot levy a CBC charge here in the town or anywhere in the county. And as I indicated, it's really a tool about higher density residential built form. So it can only be levied against buildings that are 5 or more stories and have 10 or more residential units. The legislation itself does not prescribe the structure of the rate, but it sets a cap on the rate that it cannot be greater than 4% of the land value of any specific development. And so most of the CBC bylaws out there have structured that around levying the charge as a percent of land value on the day before the first permit is issued. And the CBC legislation is really quite broad in terms of what it can fund. Unlike the Development Charges Act, it doesn't restrict us to a certain number of services and basically says that if there's a development-related impact for the provision of services related to those higher density residential built forms, you can consider it in your CBC strategy. It even allows you to look at services that are fundable from development charges and also related to parkland, which you usually acquire through Section 42 of the Planning Act. We can't double dip, but we can augment if the impacts are greater than what you're recovering for under those other tools. You can see that we've identified a series of different services in the one box there. We've been working with town staff to identify those. What we're really trying to look at here, what are the community impacts of us allowing higher density built forms? And they tend to impact on wanting to make sure that we have livable communities. So we want to look at things like active transportation, urban parks, public art, tree canopy, and other impacts associated with allowing that type of built form to occur within your communities. It's important to recognize that this tool, as with the others, require what we refer to as a benefits test, a nexus test, and we have to show a relationship between the impact of the development that's going to be paying the charge and what the monies are going to be used for. The strategy itself and the process of arriving at a bylaw is really quite straightforward. What we do is we look out at the community and we say, how much is it going to grow by over a certain planning horizon? And we're going to use a 10-year planning horizon. And then we say, well, what of that development, how much would be of a CBC type form, 5 or more stories and 10 or more residential units? And what are the impacts associated with accommodating that type of built form and identifying what those costs are and establishing how we want to structure the charge. And I'm going to give you an overview of some of those key components. In addition to those things that I've just identified, the CBC legislation says that we need to consult with respect to bringing forward a strategy or a bylaw, but it does not give us a lot of structure, unlike the Development Charges Act and the Planning Act provisions. But we are going to be bringing forward, having a formal public meeting, and we've already had consultation with some of the key stakeholders already. We can only have one CBC bylaw in place. You need to give notice of the passage of that bylaw, and as I've indicated, it is appealable to the Ontario Land Tribunal. There's certain administrative requirements as well. One of the key things is you have to structure a special account. All the CBC monies goes into that. You can only spend it for the purposes for which it was collected. And one little nuance that's been introduced to all of the tools now is that annually, the municipality and council needs to spend or allocate 60% of the monies that's in that special account towards specific projects. It doesn't have to be spent within the next calendar year, but you have to allocate it to specific projects as part of your annual budgeting process. So just to move forward about the strategy itself, it needs to include a number of components. We have to talk about how much development is going to occur, what the increased need is arising from that, identify the types of services and projects that we want to fund, and identify some other constraints limited under the legislation. The first part of that was the development forecast itself. We're working with town staff and identifying what the forecast is going to be out over our planning horizon. Our draft forecast right now for the purposes of the CBC strategy is looking at the period of 2023 to 2032. It's consistent with the Simcoe County Municipal Comprehensive Review and the draft Orbit Secondary Plan, recognizing that that is in a state of change. But based on the information that we have today, we are estimating that upwards of 6,500 additional units in CBC-style buildings, once again, 5 or more stories, 10 or more residential units, could be constructed over the next 10 years. The vast majority of those units would be within the Orbit Secondary Plan area. And then, as I've indicated, we're developing a capital program, and I'm going to give you a high-level overview of where we're at draft-wise. When we release the strategy, it'll be much more detailed, and there'll be specific projects and types of projects identified, including the timing, estimates of the gross cost, and the shares that we think are related to development occurring within CBC buildings. We will not prioritize any of those projects. However, we think that there will be the development of a strategy and a policy to help guide council in future years about making those allocations of the CBC monies that are collected. Very difficult slide to read, and I apologize for that. I'm going to try to give you the high-level overview. As you can see, we've got a whole series of categories, 16, and as I've indicated, the strategy itself will provide additional breakdown within that. You can see things like public art, the urban parks, we've got lighting improvements. Once again, things that are looking at when you allow higher density built form, making sure that the community around that is complete. We've identified upwards of about over $80 million worth of potential projects. The share of that we think is related to growth is about 77 million. And then given the constraints of the CBC legislation, the portion that we're currently allocating as related to CBC-style buildings is about $57 million. Now, I want to provide a little bit of caution there in that the structure and the charge itself is not going to generate that level of revenue, but we've got a massive capital program. As I indicated, the CBC legislation itself does not describe or provide what the rate structure should be, but caps it at that 4% of land value. That's the way most of the bylaws have proceeded to date. There are, however, some that have done it on a per unit basis. And I'm just going to try to illustrate for you what that means. So based on the forecast that we have of those 6,500 units, what we've done is we've established a land value per unit. And what we've done is we've looked at various high-density developments around Innisfil. You don't have many that we could draw upon, so we looked at some data that we have from other communities. And what we've done is we've arrived at a land value per unit of about $25,000 a unit. Recognizing there's a 4% cap, the maximum CBC charge on average we're predicting is about $1,000 a unit. And it would be somewhat higher in the Orbit area likely, and lower in other parts of the town where higher density built form was. But based on the 6,500 units, we would generate about $6.5 million over the 10 years. That compares to the approximately $57 million that I shared with you on the previous slide. And so obviously, it's only a limited amount of money, but it is going to help provide for ensuring that you have nice communities where these higher density built forms are occurring. Obviously, if the land values are greater, you'll generate a higher level of revenue if we go with the 4% cap approach. This is just a slide giving you examples of some of the other kinds of range of charges that have been determined elsewhere. Most of them are going on 4% of land value, but I've also shared with you what their average per unit would be. And you can see some are quite high, some are relatively close to what we're estimating here. I would note that Pickering, for example, has established a charge per unit, $1,000 for large apartments, and about just under $700 for the smaller apartments, which is below what they calculated as the 4% cap. There's a handful of municipalities that have gone forward with per unit charges, but the vast majority are on a percentage of land value. And just to wrap up my presentation, Madam Mayor, what we're doing here is I'm just giving you this introduction now. We're working together with staff to complete the strategy, which we look to release the week of March the 20th. We're going to give notice of a formal public meeting. That's what we're intending to hold. We'll hold that on April 19th with the objective of bringing back the CBC bylaw for Council's consideration at the end of April. And that's the end of my formal presentation.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bennings. Questions or comments? Councillor Waters.
Thank you, Your Worship. Does the CBC apply to those lands which are in the MZO?
Currently, it would apply to any building as long as it's 5 or more stories or 10 or more units, unless another piece of legislation restricts it from not being applicable.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Fowler.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have a few questions that arose during your presentation. On one of the slides, it states land value should reflect zoning and density permissions, not will. Can you describe the difference between the two terminologies? It says, because it says land value should reflect zoning density, why not make it more concrete?
We could have used either word. We're trying to reflect the language that's in the legislation. And it says when determining the value of the land, you do it on the first day, on the day before the first building permit is issued. And what that has meant historically and what's intended to reflect is the day before the first permit is issued, the land has all of its designations and approvals in place, and so it's going to have the highest value placed on it for the highest and best use of its approval. So we're just saying, for the purposes of the bylaw, we're saying we want to maximize the opportunity of the revenue at the 4% of that land value. So we use the word shall, but will could also be used.
Okay, so it has no real legal ramifications overall. The second question I have is, there was something I need clarification on, a possible CBC land value adjusted for retention of existing buildings. Can you clarify that for me, please?
Yes, it was a change to the legislation arising from Bill 23, one of our favorite pieces of legislation. And what it did is it said if there's a site there and it has existing structures on it, and after the site is redeveloped, if those structures remain, then you have to adjust the land value. So if there was, say, 10,000 square feet of space there already today, the developer comes forward and builds 100,000 square feet and retain the original 10,000 square feet, we have to take the land value and take 90% of it before we apply the 4%. So it's only the net increment of floor space that's added that is subject to the CBC if they retain the original buildings.
And one last question. It appears on your list, you said there's 16 items that you're looking to spend, that we can spend the money on. They all appear to be soft services or one-time offshoots. So are we looking at something that's used not for sustainable growth, but just to enhance the growth as it occurs? Is that the general idea?
It can be a mix of things, recognizing it has to be a capital cost, providing capital infrastructure. It could be related to, maybe I'm not fully understanding the question, but an urban park system or a streetscaping improvement that was planned already and you're just augmenting it, or it could be very localized to say this development's occurring and we really want to enhance a certain type of infrastructure or have a piece of public art there that may not have been anticipated through the annual budgeting process.
Thank you. Other questions or comments? I just had a couple, Mr. Bennings. So this is very different than the parkland dedication as far as the day before the permit versus, isn't parkland dedication prior to registration?
The valuation of the land for both parkland conveyance or cash in lieu and the CBCs is the same point. The determination of when the rates are set, in case you have a policy of an alternative rate, can be set at different places, but the actual valuation of the land for the purposes of the calculation are the same between the two pieces of legislation, or two sections of the Planning Act.
Thank you. And then when you flipped by the eligible projects, weren't there some items on there that were just pulled out of the DC charge?
What we've done now is we've looked at the last update to the development charges, and due to the restrictions of the Development Charges Act, what was the 10-year historic service level cap, now 15 years, it means that where you need to increase the service level because of the higher density residential form that we couldn't fund, we've carried it forward into the CBC. One of the comments that I didn't indicate is that we're moving through the development charge study process with you as well. When that is complete, we're going to review the CBC strategy and make sure the two sets of capital programs are aligned and there's no duplication.
Thank you very much. Questions or comments? With council's concurrence, we have 4 delegations this evening, all that have complementary reports in the agenda. So instead of making everybody wait around till we're finished, if we could consider both the receiving the delegation and then also considering that report, if there's any questions or comments on that at the same time. Is that agreeable to everyone this evening? Okay, great. So first then we'll have the recommendation to receive the delegation. The information is received as the presentation, moved by Councillor Drodge, seconded by Councillor Richardson. Questions or comments on the presentation? Ms. Toma, what have I done wrong?
Thank you, Your Worship. We've actually combined the two recommendations into one for this presentation, as it was a invited consultant hearing.
Thank you, and also it was just to be received for information this evening. So we only have the one recommendation to receive, is that correct? Seconder was Councillor Richardson. Okay, final questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed, if any? That is carried. Thank you so much, Mr. Binning, for being with us this evening. Next, we have item 6.2, Carolina Cotillo, Capital Planning Engineering Associates, regarding the Facilities Master Plan Guiding Principles.
Good evening, Your Worship, members of council, the public, and fellow staff. We're here today to talk about the Facilities Master Plan and the guiding principles that we're hoping to use to guide that plan as we undertake it over the coming months. So for clarity, facilities in this case refers to buildings, and as you'll see as we go through this document, it refers to a specific group of buildings that are owned by the town. Go to the next slide, please. So today we're going to talk about who's involved in the project, how we got where we are, what the Facilities Master Plan is, and how we develop the guiding principles that are presented to you in the report in item C1, and why we think those are a good choice of guiding principles. Next, please. So just to introduce who's working on this with us, we've retained Collier's project leaders as our consultant, and with them we've got Dean Plater as the project manager, Gabrielle Bouchard as the project assistant, Gordon Crystal as their municipal asset management leader, and Jake Dean as their financial performance analyst. And Gabrielle and Gordon will be doing a large part of this presentation, and Dean will be helping out with that as well. And then on the town side, Nikki Ballas is our new acting facilities manager, Jessica Jenkins is manager of engineering, and then myself, capital engineering planning associate. Next, please. So again, the objective of this presentation, we're going to tell you a little bit about what the Facilities Master Plan is, why we think it's important to have guiding principles for a master plan of this type and scope, and tell you a bit about the guiding principles that we're hoping to use. Next slide, please. And to give you a little background on this project, as I think most people are aware, the town has a wide variety of master plans that we use for a variety of purposes, predominantly to plan for growth, to make sure that we have sufficient infrastructure to ensure that we're meeting our growth needs in the future, but also to fulfill basic asset management functions in terms of how we run things in the town, how we ensure that the assets we have are useful to us and that we can maintain them over time. And as we go through the list of facilities, you'll see how that applies in this case, because these are a lot of facilities that we've had for quite a while and that people are quite familiar with. We're also talking, again, of course, about some of those bigger asset management pieces and how that all fits together. And that is one of the important reasons for having guiding principles. So I'm going to pass it on to Gabrielle, who's going to tell you a little bit about the particular facilities that are within scope of this project.
Thank you, Carolina. And thank you for having us today. So if we could get the next slide. So the town engaged our team to help do the facilities master plan for 11 facilities. And you can see there are a lot of interesting facilities here: community centers, arenas, your Cookstown Theater, Town Hall, Sultan Sand Dome, which is a bit of an outlier. But these are the facilities that are in scope and that we are developing a plan for. Next slide, please. If I can get the next slide. Thanks. So we were engaged a few months ago by the town, and so far we've done work with data gathering. We've planned out how we are going to be executing the project. And right now we are in the phase of establishing guiding principles, and we're right at the end of that phase. And this council meeting is a big milestone in order for us to proceed. Once we have the guiding principles solidified, we're going to be doing a lot of stakeholder engagement over the next couple of months, and then finally writing the facilities master plan report by the fall. So you saw in the last slide that guiding principles are a big chunk of this project, and there's a good reason for that. We believe that guiding principles are going to be really important in this project because you have a lot of facilities that are really important to the community. And what the guiding principles are going to do is it's going to help prioritize the funds that go to which investments. It's going to help guide the decisions of where your limited funds go. With our community consultation, which are also going to be weighing in on the guiding principles, it's going to consider the needs of the community and not just finances. And then finally, and arguably most importantly, it's going to facilitate objectivity because these are important facilities to the community. We are going to be able to rank what's important to the community, and that's going to allow when we get to the end of the project, if there are recommendations that the community is resistant to, we can come back to this moment and say, these are the reasons why we chose to do it this way. These are the values that are important in a ranked value, and this is why we made the decisions that we made. Next slide. So I want to give an example of why the guiding principles are important and the impact that they can have on how the town decides to distribute their funds and really ultimately decide the fate of some of the facilities in a community. So my colleague Gordon led the facility master plan for Penticton, BC, which is it was a very similar suite of facilities, and they have an arena that, as you can see in the photo, is beautiful. It's 80 years old. It's been in the community for a long time and has a lot of historical value. But unfortunately, the arena is not the standard size of an arena, so it has limited capabilities that way, and the maintenance costs are very high. So the community had to decide, is the historical significance of this beautiful arena worth the maintenance costs. A similar exercise was done with the guiding principles, and this particular community rated having a new modern amenities that fit current standards higher than historical value. Historical value in their community was ranked quite low, and what they actually decided to do was to demolish this arena and another arena and build a large dual state-of-the-art arena while maintaining some of the original pieces of this memorial arena that you see in front of you. Next slide, please. So we spoke to your senior staff and put what we would consider the standard guiding principles in front of them, and this is how they were ranked. So first, you have amenities for future generations. So this is a guiding principle that prioritizes facilities that will adapt to the needs of future generations. Second, you have sustainable services, which prioritizes facilities that support the current desired community services. Next, you have multi-use, multifunctional facilities, and this guiding principle prioritizes facilities that can be adapted for a variety of uses. Fourth, you have modern functionality. This principle prioritizes facilities that can adapt to modern technologies. Fifth, you have smart investment, which prioritizes facilities that are the best value for money. And then finally, you have preserving heritage. So this is the principle that prioritizes facilities that have some sort of historical value. So as you can see, your senior staff have ranked flexible multi-use facilities, multi-use principles very high, and value for money and preserving heritage on the lower end. Next slide, please. So to bring everything together, once we have agreement on which guiding principles to use and how these guiding principles are ranked, the next step is going to be doing comprehensive stakeholder engagement, where we will also get input on these guiding principles. However, the ranking and type of guiding principles will remain. We're going to be doing an in-depth capital and operational finance analysis. And then finally, we're going to take all of this information, put it together with the guiding principles, and come up with a plan for Innisfil's facilities in the form of a facilities master plan. Thank you for listening. And at this point, we are happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Questions or comments from members of council? Councillor Waters?
Thank you, Your Worship. Because we've moved this up in terms of discussion, this means we will not be pulling it later on? Is that what I gathered from what you're...
If it's not too much procedural gymnastics for the clerk's office, if we could, first of all, we're going to have two recommendations. So one to receive the presentation, and then if it's possible to go to item C1. And yes, and so we'd be dealing with that now as opposed to dealing with it.
Okay, then. I just wanted to confirm that. So, because I did make a recommendation change. So what I had asked staff to do is that I thought it was missing, they were missing an important principle. And so I've asked them to add a principle around green sustainability and carbon. And so last time we checked that would be added to the recommendations. And so we would now have 7 principles as opposed to 6. And this one would be listed as number 3.
So is there an amended recommendation we can pull up on the screen? Ms. Tomlin?
Thank you, Your Worship. And through you to Councillor Waters and yourself and Council, I believe what we should do is receive this presentation first, and then Council can consent to move that item forward, and we can bring the revised recommendation up on the screen for Council's consideration.
Thank you. So let's do that. So if there is questions or comments for Ms. Bouchard or Ms. Cotillo first. I have a couple. So the item 6, which was or principle 6, which was the heritage consideration, there were 2 items on there that I know are important to the community, 2 facilities. One was the Knox School, and one was the South Simcoe Theatre. Now, I did notice on the last slide that Ms. Bouchard, I didn't see the South Simcoe Theatre on that slide, and I just wanted to make sure it was part of the 11. And I talked about open engagement, and I think it's going to be very, very important to keep, because we have traditional groups that we have the South Simcoe Theatre, which uses the South Simcoe Theatre building, and then we have the Innisfil Historical Society, which uses the Knox School. And I imagine their anxiety level going through this kind of facility master plan will be quite high. And so I just would hope that staff would keep them regularly updated and make sure that engagement is done with them. I love the idea about the flexibility, multifunctional, because I have to tell you, 10 years ago, nobody'd heard of pickleball. And now, that's all we hear about is pickleball. So I imagine there'll be another pickleball 10 years down the road, and we might have to be flexible on that as well. And that was it. Other than accessibility was one item I didn't hear a lot about, and I'm assuming all of this would go through our Accessibility Advisory Committee.
Through your worship, yes, we certainly do expect accessibility to be one of those themes that runs through all of the decisions that we make throughout this project. And I do want to reassure everyone that yes, the Cookstown Theatre is within scope of this particular project, so we will be looking at that theatre as part of this analysis.
And one final question, why is the Sand Salt Dome on here, but the other operations facilities are not on here?
So through your worship, this facilities master plan is looking specifically at facilities that were not already covered through other master plans. So the Sand Salt Dome and the Operations Center are in it, but other facilities like the operations facility within Innisfil Beach Park, for example, are covered through other master planning exercises, similarly to the way that our libraries and fire halls are covered through those master planning exercises.
Thank you, Carolina. Other questions or comments? Seeing none, so I need a mover and a seconder then to accept the report as received, or the delegation. Sorry, Councillor Waters and Councillor Saunders. All those in favor? That's carried. And now ask for consensus to move forward to item C1, which is the staff report on the agenda. Councillor Waters, you wanted to bring forward an amendment?
Thank you, Worship. Yes, I would. After reading the report, I thought there was one principle that had not been included that was important to all facilities, especially since we're moving forward. And we did adopt the emergency climate emergency last year, so I thought including a strong statement around sustainability, but also aligning it with the future of the integrated sustainability master plan coming down. So I wanted the two of them to be tied together, and staff were nice enough to include it in the motion.
Thank you. Do you have a seconder, Councillor Waters? Councillor Drodge? Okay, further comments and questions on staff report C1 and the amended recommendation? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. Thank you very much. And now we'll move on to the third delegation, which is Ms. Brand, Sandy Brand. Good evening, welcome to council, and please, whenever you're ready.
Thank you very much. Welcome to everybody. Back in 2012, I approached the town to help with the wall along the side of the creek, which is beside my home, because I could see it disintegrating. That led to the town sending me an encroachment agreement. It was for a very tiny corner of my dwelling, which the town deemed was on town land, and I was happy to pay for that. But the encroachment agreement also included me being responsible for the wall flanking the creek on the town's land. In January 2nd, 14, I made it very clear in writing that I would not accept any responsibility for that wall. It's totally unclear as to who built it, and nobody seems to know. Subsequently, I did agree to pay the additional tax and signed the revised and the encroachment agreement for that portion of my house only. The new agreement made absolutely no mention of the wall. The town demanded that it be named insured on my homeowner's policy under the liability section, and that has been done. The wall continues to fail. Floods my garden each spring, taking more earth from the garden out into the creek as it recedes every year. And the creek is getting narrower and narrower vertically. It's hard to get out sometimes. The town's new flooding strategy protects individual properties, including easements. However, the town is electing not to protect their own property, which includes the failing retaining wall beside my property. The town's taxpayers need to be treated equally, and the town is spending money on properties upstream from me. I know this for a fact. Doubling culverts at my corner has been suggested, and it's probably necessary, but it will, amongst other things, worsen my flooding situation, leading to more risk of a lawsuit for the town. Prevention will cost the town less than a lawsuit before it has to be remedied anyway. I've got to tell you, the stress I have suffered through all of this has been onerous. My doctor's well aware of it. I'm now on medication. I'm a 76-year-old handicapped homeowner and taxpayer who does not deserve this emotional abuse. I don't want to lose my home to the creek. Please fix your property. I want to thank a lot of my friends and neighbours for coming out and supporting me tonight. If they'd all care to rise, the town can see just how many of us there are. This is just a few. I just thought of this a couple of days ago, and all of these people have turned up. I'm so grateful to all of you. Thank you so much for your generosity of your time and being here. Love you all. Thank you. Can I answer any questions for anybody?
Thank you, Ms. Brand. Is there any questions for Ms. Brand? Seeing none, thank you so much for being here this evening and for your friends that came out. And I would ask for a mover and a seconder, please, that the delegation regarding item 10.2 be received. Moved by Councillor Zanella, seconded by Councillor Waters. All those in favor? That is carried.
Thank you.
And to keep with tradition, we'll be bouncing around this agenda all night, I guess. I'm sorry to clerks again. So did we want to move then to item 10.2? And that would be the notice, a motion which notice was provided on February the 22nd. And I'll ask Councillor Waters.
Thank you, Worship. I just want to reiterate what Ms. Brand has said in terms of the issues at large here, is that the major point is one of the major points is treating all residents equally, and that we are spending lots of money upstream from her house with retaining walls, with armor walls, with easements, with proper swales, all to protect individual homeowners along the creek. And this is no different. Her unfortunate situation is that she has an encroachment upon the property which contains the wall. And I think, and no one has proven to me who built the wall. The land was signed over during 1927 when that subdivision had been put forward, and and the house was built after the wall. The wall is not part of the structure which holds the house up. So I've supported Ms. Brand all the way to this point here, and I'm hoping that the third-party engineer will define what the wall does. So is it there strictly to support her house and prevent erosion, or was it built originally to contain the creek? Since the house wasn't there, I can only assume that it was there to contain the creek and preventing erosion just with the land that was there, but also preventing flooding in terms of that part of the property. So I think the history, there's a lot of documentation has been missed, and I hope this council will support the motion to move ahead with a third-party engineer who will assess the purpose of that and come back to council with a recommendation that will allow us to resolve this long-standing issue with Ms. Brand. So I will, at the right time, put that motion forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Waters. And do you have a seconder for your motion? Councillor Zadella? Thank you. Questions or comments on the motion? Deputy Mayor Fowler?
Thank you, Your Worship. If we had more clear background on the wall and everything else, I could see it being a more clear-cut case, but the idea of the town's stance of placing an $80,000 charge for 1 foot of land on a disabled septuagenarian doesn't sit well with me. I think we need somebody to give answers that we can rely on, that we can work with, that provide concrete direction. I fully support you, Councillor Waters. Thank you.
Other questions or comments? I have a question, Councillor. The first 3 bullets, so right now we're going through a flooding strategy and a flooding master plan. And we've hired consultants to do a full comprehensive flooding master plan for the entire municipality. I guess my concern is the first 3 bullets above the action, which is to hire the third party, seem to be directing the consultants and maybe directing them differently than what their conclusions would be, their professional conclusions would be. I'm just wondering if there's a timing miss on the first 3 bullets.
I don't think so. I was trying to tie it together as an integrated decision process, so that if you're going to be making decisions upstream, those should apply all the way down to the lake. And so I was trying to state what is currently going on, that it's not only about the wall, but it's about all the other things that are going on at the same time, which could impact this property down the road. So I was not directing, I was just stating facts of clarifying what is going on in that watershed. And so it wasn't designed to direct, it was designed just to encompass the whole argument in a more holistic and integrated approach.
Thank you. Ms. Jenkins, I'm looking at item 2. It says the above strategy reevaluates a more direct channel for the stream to enter Lake Simcoe via Ninth Line Park. So how does this fit in with the process we're going through right now?
Through you, Your Worship. I can confirm that both the various roads drainage program, the specific project that is in this area, and our flooding strategy and stormwater master plan are looking at that option that's outlined in number 2 as part of those work. So it is in alignment with those studies that are underway.
Wonderful. I just didn't want one part of the town pulling away from another part of the town and doing 2 different things. Any other questions or comments? Councillor Saunders.
My point of view is we're already doing a master plan for the water right now. And now Mrs. Buchanan wants hers to be brought front and center. Unfortunately, that doesn't sit well with me because that means that someone else is going to come back next week and make sure their property's front and center as well. So I think everybody should be waiting until we see our reports from the floodwater and see what's happening. So spending the money for a another recommendation. I think it's just a waste of money because we're already paying for the master plan to be looked at. And I think it's just opening a ball of worms for Mrs. Buchanan to do hers, then someone else is going to do theirs. I think they should be done. And that I think there should be, people should wait and to see what happens, and then we should decide on this.
Thank you. I'm just going to go to Ms. Jenkins first and say, is this something that could be considered in the current process that we have going on right now? And if you could speak to any precedents.
Through your worship, the stormwater master plan and flooding strategy is going to look at this area sort of holistically with respect to some of the short-term needs for smaller storm events, which is also being looked at through the various roads drainage program and some of the improvements that are being proposed in this area for that. But it will also look at sort of that longer term strategy to help mitigate some of the larger flood events and like policy level decision making when it comes to, as we grow as a municipality, future development and things like that, that may have impacts on our stormwater management and flooding. Now I'm losing my train of thought, my apologies. Could you repeat the question again?
Then the second part of my question, because I think you've answered the first part, was could you speak to any precedent setting?
Yes, so I think that, the flooding strategy is going to look at things like, outlets to the lake and strategies that we can look at from a policy level and also, from a strategy level to help ensure that we are meeting our obligations when it comes to flooding and stormwater management. So I think through that strategy, there will be some guidance on how to deal with these types of situations. And there are likely a number of other situations like this across the town that this similar situation would apply to.
Thank you, Councillor Waters.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would like to mention that Ms. Brand's property is probably the only property that doesn't get equal treatment, is that everyone upstream from Buchanan all the way down has some sort of solution being parched out in the alternative flooding, the alternatives in the flooding plan. So it even includes building 2 armor stone walls to take the water from Tall Tree out to the lake, protecting 2 homeowners which have waterfront property from any potential flooding. So it seems like everyone else has been part of the strategy, and they are doing their best. But the only property they didn't include in this was Miss Brand's property. That's where all the water ends up. All the improvements that the town is going to make is going to improve water flow down past Miss Brand's house, where there's a failing wall. And if there's a failing wall, there is a chance that, that contains the river. It will not contain the river because it's going to get washed away in a flood. So I'm just asking for Miss Brand's property to be treated equally in this strategy, which it is not, so that we can work with her and resolve her issue, as well as resolve, because that is part of my ward, and it floods every single year, and we spend a lot of time and money. So the strategies and the alternatives we come are all good. I've commented on them. There's some very, very good strategies there. But the one they neglected, was Miss Brand's property. And so I'm asking the town, to have this third-party engineer take a look at it, and then it be included in, part of the strategy to manage the floodwaters and keep this property safe. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from staff or from council? Then I'll call the question. All in favor of the... Sorry, I'm sorry, Councillor Drodge, I didn't see you.
Through you, Your Worship, that engineering study, correct me if I'm wrong, is just to make sure, or so we can decide if this is a structure that is used for water flow, or if this wall is actually part of the structure of the home. That engineering study is what we have on the table. That's what you're putting forward, right? That's partly of that study, what that is?
That's correct, because the town has said that the function of it is strictly to support Miss Brand's house. And I think history shows that the wall was there for many other reasons, just not that. And so I think it's either a shared responsibility or the onus is on the town to fix the wall.
Okay, so then the engineering study's not, it does kind of align with stormwater management, but this is a particular situation that wouldn't be covered under the big scope of things. So just to clarify, that engineering study is particular to this one. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Deputy Mayor Fowler?
Thank you, Your Worship. If, according to our discussions, the cost is roughly a few $1,000s. Am I not correct, Ms. Jenkins?
Through you, Your Worship, to Deputy Mayor Fowler. Yes, we anticipate that this will be a few $1,000s to complete this study.
So in essence, if it goes through and it finds a cost share program, we're actually saving one of our residents a sizable chunk of money. If the result comes back and it points out that it's not for the support of the home, it saves her 80. But in the off chance that it comes back and it's not favorable, this is something that we need to identify. The one big question mark we have is, you know, what is the purpose of the wall? It came before the house. It was there for the stream initially, but now, as no one's taken ownership, there's no record of it, there's no paperwork, there's nothing to verify. We need to solidify this understanding of what it is and what it does before we move forward. So I think in the grand scheme of things, a few $1,000s for a bit of peace of mind is worth it.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Now I'll call the question. All in favor of the recommendation on the screen? All opposed? That's carried. Next, we'll go to our last delegation of the evening, and that is Mr. Peter Van Loan. Welcome. It's been a long time since you've been in our council chambers. I think the last time was when you were our Member of Parliament.
Thank you, and it's
further along Innisfil Beach Road, further along Yonge Street, or in any arterial road where you have such a sort of initial use, you could expand it further. And that, I think, is a dangerous precedent, both in terms of what planning policy is and what the town seeks to do. And of course, this intersection where the hospital is going to play an essential role in the character and future of Innisfil as a community. It will be a gateway location. It will be a prominent location. It's going to be a very, very important facility, both in terms of serving the community, but also as an economic generator. creating jobs and economic activity for that particular area and for many, many in the community. So these are all things that we think are jeopardized somewhat by the proposal. Certainly the town is working hard on developing a vision for this area, for that particular intersection as a gateway, and so that you can capture fully the benefits of the potential economic growth there. It's interesting to note that when we were negotiating the minister's zoning order for the hospital, and it's not just a hospital building, it's of course other associated uses. Hopefully there'll be many medical offices, potential research offices, all kinds of uses that if you think about hospitals elsewhere, you see these kinds of uses pop up in the area. And they're all part of kind of a continuum of service that is provided to the community. And you even have potential opportunities for linkages, as I said, in research with the university community and the like. So these are all great opportunities. But our concern is that should uses like this be encouraged and permitted along Innisfil Beach Road, along Yonge Street, you will see some of that potential severely diminished and lost. So this is a concern to the hospital. It's interesting to note that when we were actually negotiating the wording of the minister's zoning order, of the bylaw, if you will, that was going to apply to the hospital site, one of the things that I had certainly personally suggested is we'd like the flexibility to maybe establish an odd restaurant on Yonge Street frontage, for example, as an interim use that could capture some of that revenue and so on. And the town staff were quite insistent that that shouldn't happen, that if we were going to have any kind of retail uses or restaurant uses, they should be integral as part of larger buildings and not sort of the face of the frontage. And we accepted that proposition, so it was to the hospital a little bit surprising to see now that that is actually being considered. Now, we are mindful that there is a recommendation in front of you from staff that suggests that this should be approved subject to a holding zone for the proposed gas station expansion and restaurant and accompanying uses. And there are 3 conditions that are identified in the staff report for the lifting of that H, or the holding zone, so to allow the use to proceed ultimately. And one of those 3 conditions relates to the requirement to submit a traffic study. And our concern with this is we think it's very important that there be a traffic study. We're looking at potential increases based on the applicant's application and the traffic work that was submitted, which was quite limited, but it did indicate, for example, a 300% increase in some turning movements. And this is, you know, in normal design terms, if you were starting afresh, you would not permit those kind of driveway accesses so close to a major intersection like that. So we're very concerned about some of the traffic impacts, and we would like to, at the very least, see spelled out in that condition for lifting the H a little more specificity. And I've sent a letter to you. I hope it's in front of you. But on page 3 of that letter, we've suggested an alternative condition for the traffic study, and it would read, a traffic study of the expected traffic generation by all of the uses at or near the intersection, including the proposed full hospital use and associated buildings and activities, demonstrating to the satisfaction of the town and county, A, that the driveway locations and associated turning movements and volumes will not adversely affect the functioning and safety of Innisfil Beach Road and Yonge Street intersection, and B, that there will not be an adverse impact on the traffic functions for the hospital, including ambulance traffic movements, and C, that it is demonstrated that the site design for the proposed restaurant drive-through provides sufficient queuing space for the forecast demand for that type of restaurant in order to ensure that no traffic backs up onto the public roadways. So if we would obviously prefer that it not be approved at this stage, but if it is approved, we would ask that that condition requiring the traffic study for the holding zone to be lifted include those extra provisions that you see spelled out on page 3 of my letter. Thank you very much for your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. Questions or comments for Mr. Van Loan? Councillor Saunders.
I just have a question. You, a couple of years ago, had some stipulations to this land, and I believe the land has come back and shown that they're putting noise walls and stuff like that up. Now you're saying you don't want it anymore. So I mean, but you're trying to tell the landowner that you don't want him to have a restaurant there because you want a restaurant there. You don't want a car wash because you think it's going to run 24 hours. I think maybe if you work a little bit more with the landowner and say, okay, you know, maybe the hospital will be more apt if you run the car wash till 7 o'clock at night. There's only so many amounts of cars allowed in the parking lot at a time. I just think you're trying to tell the landowner and the council right now of what we should be doing. And you've already come back to, you've already said a couple years ago some recommendations which he's approved and he's done, but now you want more. I think your chances as, you know, you guys keep changing what you want, and the landowner keeps telling you he's doing what he's doing and trying to come up with suitable solutions, but I guess his solutions aren't good enough for the hospital?
Well, firstly, I should state that our concerns have remained the same throughout. And we have been in dialogue with both town staff and with the applicants. We haven't received satisfactory answers, and no, we did not ask for certain things that have been offered and then say they're not good enough. That's simply not factually accurate. We've been consistent throughout. In fact, the first kind of offer is we're here today saying, well, if you're going to go ahead and approve it, please consider this more reasonable traffic condition that actually provides some protections and holds the traffic study to a certain standard. But no, we accepted the vision of this town staff for this area, that you didn't want to have restaurants and retail along these frontages. We accepted that and reflected it in our minister's zoning order. So we're not saying, no, we don't want them to have it because we'd like to do it instead. No, we work together with the town on a vision for what this area should look like. So our surprise is that that vision is now being departed from the town, but also that these uses are going to be at this critical anchor intersection, but also approved in a way that creates a very dangerous precedent. If you can expand there, why can't you expand to the lot next to it? What do you do when the next owner comes over along Innisfil Beach Road and wants similar permissions? This is where incoming traffic to Alcona comes. So maybe Tim's goes in there and W wants to go next door. You can't very much say no to them. You can say no right now. I certainly can say no because I think the growth plan says you can't establish these new uses outside the settlement area where they don't exist right now. It's all right if they exist right now, but here you're extending them to new properties where they don't exist right now and where it is not settlement area. And the growth plan simply doesn't permit that. So there are a lot of concerns we have with that, and if that gets established as a principle contrary to growth plan policy, then what's to stop it happening anywhere else? And what will that do to the overall appearance of this area, both from the perspective of the hospital and from the desire of the town to create this very important economic hub at this critical intersection?
Councillor Saunders?
Thank you, Worship. You're forgetting to say that on the RVH campus up in Barrie, there's a very, very busy Tim Hortons.
Well, it's a very busy area, and it wasn't comprehensively planned. It's certainly been incremental over the years. This is an opportunity to engage in comprehensive planning, and we commend the town for that. We're having a very positive experience, I think it's fair to say, working with town staff on building that vision, because we think it's a really positive opportunity for the community and for Innisfil, for the hospital, and for all the residents here, and we want it to be optimized to its greatest potential.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Waters?
Thank you, Your Worship. What I'm going to suggest is that the owner already has a corner business, which he's going to expand south to include a restaurant. So there's nothing that we can do to affect those plans because, so we're looking at the expansion westward where the car wash and the other restaurant are. So I think we're going to have a busy intersection because we already have a business there and it's going to be expanded. So the only exception here is that we could have this same on Innisfil Beach Road, which you're having an issue with. My question is, since this gentleman already owns the business and he's operating already, there's already existing traffic, this has already been allowed to do, If RVH doesn't want that there, would they consider approaching the owner and buying the piece of property and have access from RVH to that if you wanted to have a restaurant and still get it, but not have access from Innisfil Beach Road? So my question is, would RVH entertain and would the owner be interested in selling that piece of land so it doesn't, so that's my question.
Well, if the town wants to bring us together and facilitate that kind of a discussion, that would be up to the folks at the hospital. It's not part of my brief here today.
Thank you.
Thank you. Questions? Councillor Constantine?
So my question is, if the traffic is conducted and it came back that it won't affect the hospital, would you accept that?
If the traffic conditions were, the condition for the traffic study was modified to reflect what we've asked for, I think we would be quite reasonably willing to live with a traffic study that satisfied that.
Thank
Hard
you.
for us to say otherwise.
Councillor Sinella?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've read the letters, and I find I don't understand some of the things you're saying. The traffic, first of all, is not really that busy. I drive by it all the time. I use it. It's not that busy. And sure, it's going to get busier because, you know, growth is happening. It is our main downtown street, Innisfil Beach Road. Something else that in the letter was about the noise, and I'm not really sure how any noise from the corner gas station is going to affect the hospital. There's going to be more noise coming from ambulances. The car wash is only noisy when you're sitting in your car inside. When you're outside, you don't hear anything. And when you're in the hospital, you don't hear anything outside except usually ambulances because there's no windows to open. Everything's closed. So I'm not really sure about the sound thing. That's kind of disturbing me. But I don't, I mean, if you think that you need a study done, I just don't think it's that busy. And I do realize it will get busier. Of course it's going to get busier. The whole town is going to get busier as time goes on. But and you mentioned that maybe down the road, the hospital will put a Tim Hortons like they did at RVH, so that's going to be noisy.
The concern with respect to the car wash operation is that among the different plans that we've looked at for the master plan here, the Minister's zoning order permits, for example, a long-term care home on the site. So the area closest to this facility is one that has been identified at least in one of our alternatives as a location for a long-term care facility. So that would be residence. That's a sensitive use. I don't want to get into too much detail, but you get into the D4 Ministry of Environment noise guidelines, and you have a stationary noise source there for which you can't attenuate. So there are potential issues there. We don't know, without someone having done that work, if that will be a problem or not. But it's one that we raise as a potential problem. But as I say, with respect to the traffic study, our concern is not the condition today. Our concern is the condition when we're trying to have a very busy, large, and hopefully significant hospital and associated set of uses operating in this area. And how will that area function? And while we're planning, can we plan for that today and be satisfied that we aren't making decisions today that will harm the ability of that hospital use to perform the role we all want it to play? And a traffic study can typically take these forecasts of growth, look at what is projected. That's the kind of things that you would look at in a traffic study.
Madam Chair, through you, sorry, Madam Mayor, is Yonge Street is the county not widening it from, I don't know, down way past the hospital? It's going to be widened, correct, all the way up?
Ms. Lee?
Thank you, Mayor Dolan. Yes, That is correct. The county has initiated the process of the EA study to widen it from Bradford right through. It is phased over a period of time, so they're just going through that project study at this point in time.
Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm hearing things, and I'm sorry, but I'm there's something that I'm not really relating to here. You're saying the noise is going to be an issue. We've already heard about the barriers that they're willing to put up, the sound barriers. You're talking about traffic studies. East to west, 20th side road to 27th side to 27th highway, it's going to 4 lanes plus. And by the time the hospital even gets its first floor completed, the road will be widened to 4+ lanes. So there's the traffic issue. I don't understand. Yonge Street is being widened, so we're getting this excess room, this flow that will easily accommodate the growth that's happening in the region. This, to me, I'm sorry. There's something I'm not hearing, and I don't understand why. Because we're talking about 2 restaurants and a gas station and a car wash. Yet, if you go to the North Campus, you have Georgian College. That's a little bigger than a Tim Hortons. I'm just trying to keep it in perspective here. Like what I'm hearing is noise is an issue. You have a college with young people and the dormitories, I'm assuming, in the region. You have the stores there. You have the traffic there that has the same widening. I've never encountered a traffic jam getting into RVH North. I can't see where the argument holds any water. I'm sorry, it doesn't, there's something that I'm not hearing, and I don't understand why. Thank you.
Well, your staff have recommended the holding zone with the condition for a traffic study. What we have in front of you is a suggestion to elaborate what that traffic study would look at. And it's all things that you're telling me you're satisfied will not be problems. And if that's what the traffic study indeed demonstrates, then the H will be able to be removed. But we are concerned about the safety of the intersection, the traffic capacity, whether ambulance movements and so on would be affected, and whether you're going to have queuing from the restaurants back onto Innisfil Beach Road. Those are the concerns. And if the traffic study addresses that all those things have been taken into consideration properly, that the site design of the queuing for the drive-throughs, for example, doesn't result in backups onto the roadway, blocking traffic, then you will have satisfied the conditions for the lifting of the H. So if you are right, and all those improvements and all those design considerations are taken care of, then this condition shouldn't trouble you.
Councillor Waters?
Thank you, Your Worship. Questions to staff. When the Innisfil Beach Road gets expanded, is there an island that extends down from the lights and would it go past both of these entrances, which would eliminate half the traffic going into things? So I'm just asking, I don't know what that roadway is going to look like and whether or not an island would help alleviate traffic safety concerns.
Through you, Mayor Dolan, to Councillor Waters. At this point in time, we haven't seen detailed design from the county because it's the start of the process. We know the road is proposed to be widened, but we haven't seen whether that would include a barrier median in the center of that road. So that would be part of the county process, and certainly we could weigh in with comments on what that looks like, but we don't have that information to date.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions or comments? Mr. Van Loan, thank you so much for coming tonight. I want to just say a few things. I want to say that, we are so thrilled that the South Campus is coming and to that very location. And we're also very happy with the way that town staff and the hospital are working together for the betterment of the community, and we really do appreciate your partnership, your strong partnership throughout this. We're going to be moving on to that item next, if the clerks don't mind, but I also wanted to say that if there was no business on that corner right now, then I would have a whole different attitude than I have right now. There's an existing business, and if we say no to this parcel, there's still an existing business, and it's still going to cause issues. I'm with you with the queuing for the cars in the drive-through. All you need to do is go to Stroud or Alcona to see what happens when you don't provide enough queue space, whereas the one at Innisfil Beach Road and the 400 is much better designed. So again, I also with you on the cumulative impact. So I would argue, and you're a lawyer and I'm not, but I would argue that allowing an existing business to upgrade is way different than allowing a new business and a new business and a new business to keep adding on. And I respectfully, I thank you so much, and respectfully disagree on that one point, but hope we can work together in the future to create an amazing hospital. Questions or comments? So what we're doing now is receiving the delegation from Mr. Van Loan. So can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Constantine and Deputy Mayor Fowler, all those in favor? That is carried. And now we will move to item C6. And we have a recommendation on the screen. Questions or comments on this item? So I have a couple of questions. So, Mr. Kerr, the traffic impact brief, as opposed to a traffic impact study, I've never heard that term before. Oh, and I need a mover and a seconder. The clerk's going to tell me. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Richardson and Councillor Waters. I'm going to have to go back to chairing school. I just wanted to know what the difference was between a traffic impact brief and a traffic impact study. And I have to say that it wasn't Mr. Van Loan's that I'd already had that written as a question on my page prior to that.
Through you, Mayor Dolan. So a traffic impact brief is what was prepared and evaluated as part of the official plan amendment and zoning bylaw before you today. And a traffic impact study as part of the conditions of the H would be required prior to the lifting of the H, which would have and require the benefit of a more detailed site plan approval process, looking at traffic as well as the access and everything else discussed today. Thank you.
Thank you. So the entirety of the queuing, I think I counted the cars on the schematic that I saw, but that would be further enhanced in the process.
Through you, Mayor Dolan, yes, through that requirement of the H, that would be evaluated.
And can I ask then about the noise attenuation? So can we put conditions on about the hours that the car wash can operate so that it's not operating 24 hours?
Through you, Mayor Dolan, what I would say right now is they do require a detailed site plan application, and I think having the benefit of some of those more detailed studies, including what's required in the H, would be ideal from a staff perspective. Certainly, staff wouldn't be opposed to the consideration of something like an hour limit, for example.
Okay. Thank you. Last chance for questions or comments. Councillor Waters.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just want to clarify a point you just made to the Mayor. During site plan, they will have to do a proper traffic impact study?
Through you, Mayor Dolan, over to Councillor Waters, that's correct, and that's what's been identified as part of the requirements of the H and prior to the lifting of the H.
So, the hospital's concern that we do a better one is already included in the process that we already have?
Through the chair, yes, that's correct.
Okay, so the only difference is that we're not putting a hold on it, but we're still going to get that traffic study, and that traffic study will dictate?
Through the chair, so there will be a hold. We are recommending a hold, and it's for the same purposes. What I heard today is they're requesting perhaps further clarity in terms of what that study would require, but certainly as it's been proposed in the staff report, in my opinion, would achieve the same objective of looking at the traffic.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor of the recommendation? Those opposed? That's carried. Thank you very much. Now, that is the end of our delegations for this evening. So we'll now go to County Council, municipal associations, and conservation authorities and committees. Councillor Richardson.
I just wanted to say that we had our library board meeting, and the former vice chair, Sue Bennett, had stepped down, so Rob Nickel has been deemed as our new vice chair for the library board. And actually, at the library board, we had a presentation from two of the library services staff that talked about some of the assisted devices that the library has for anyone to utilize. Like, they have book stands, a daisy player that's good for visual impairment, magnifier, and they also talked about a free home library service for residents who can't get to library. So it was really informative that we got to learn some of those things that the library services do provide.
Thank you, Councillor, and I understand they're full of activities for March break coming up.
Yes, that was on my announcements part, but it's all good. Yes, they have some fantastic programs and stuff ready to go for March break next week, so it'll be great for the kids.
Sorry to steal your thunder. Anyone else have updates? Deputy Mayor Fowler.
Thank you, Worship. At County last week, we had someone come up by the name of Pamela Hillier, and she gave a presentation on 211, the Community Connections program that the province has. It's actually very interesting. I actually did a bit of a deep dive into it after the fact. Just so everyone is aware, this is something that is actually really, really helpful to the community. If you don't speak English or French as one of your primary languages, they have 170 languages that you can use with via three-way call with an interpreter. They have a website that has a GIS map. Now, I went just to look at Alcona by itself, and they have everything. Like, it's incredible the amount of support that is available at the tip of your fingers. Abuse, assault, addiction, community programs, employment training, family services, homeless, Indigenous program services, LGBTQ+. Plus, there is everything anybody could need to get at least a direction as to how to help yourself and move forward, no matter what the scenario is. So this is something, if you know anybody who's ever in need or has an issue, 211ontario.ca, go check it out, and you can talk, you can type, and it's actually very, very incredible. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else have any committees that they'd like to report out on? Seeing none, I'll just add a couple of items to the county update. So the county has again ranked number 2 in organics diversion and reached a milestone of, was it 200,000 tons of organics has been diverted, which saves 4 years in the county landfill site. So it's a great milestone for us. The 211 delegation included a video which highlighted South Simcoe Police in it. And we've had 211 service for years and years and years, and it's one of the most underutilized services that we have. I was up at Sandy Cove Acres talking to a lady who was worried about how she could get a drive to a medical appointment, and I told her call 211, and they can help with things like that as well. So lots and lots of services. So whenever anyone has a question for you that you can't answer, direct them to 211, and there's a good chance they'll get an answer from that source. And then finally, through the long-term care homes, there was a diagnostic imaging arrangement made with the hospital. I wish the hospital folks were still here so I could thank them. So what happened before, if you were in a long-term care home and had a fall or a fracture, you'd be taken to Emerge, and you'd sit in Emerge for several hours before you were seen. Now there's an immediate intake, so if you're coming from a long-term care home, you're taken right to imaging as soon as you arrive at the hospital. So that will make things a lot easier for our long-term care folks. And that's all I had. Seeing no more, then we'll move on to our consent list. And we'll skip a few that we've already dealt with. So first is A1, the special council meeting minutes dated February the 15th. A2, the council meeting minutes dated February the 22nd. B1, that would be the joint interim governance advisory committee meetings. B2, the Innisfil Accessibility Advisory Committee meeting. Councillor Saunders, how did your first meeting go?
I'm learning a lot. I mean, a lot.
This chairing thing it looks easier than it is, isn't it?
Yeah, no, it's not easy.
That's great. So we've already dealt with C1. So C2, the Municipal Elections Overview and Engagement Plan. Councillor Constantine.
So I move to ask the council to accept the recommendation for C2124 to study the election engagement plan.
So I think, Councillor, what you wanted to tell people is that you were really welcoming that we're moving forward with this? Yes. Great.
We would like the recommendation to have the committee to look into these C21 to 4.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Fowler?
Thank you, Worship. Just a quick question regarding the ward boundary review on the bottom of page 2. If I can get some clarification. I'm not looking to alter anything. I'm just looking for some information. It says staff is also recommending that we engage with the public regarding a review of the ward boundaries. Now, we're going to have a committee set up. We've set up in the report, it dictates who is going to be chosen for that committee and why. But how would you engage? What do you mean engage with the public? Are we having open houses? Is it online? I'm just looking for some clarification, please.
Ms. Toma?
Thank you, and through you to Councillor Fowler. The intent of a ward boundary committee would be to have an independent people who are educated, well, not educated, but who are aware of how wards interact with one another and the community, and to make recommendations as to whether we should be going with a consultant, whether we should be doing it in-house, and also help guide either through a consultant or through staff how we would engage with the public, most likely through Get Involved sites, to look at the various aspects that you would look at for a ward boundary as to the communities that have interest, heritage, the lakefront properties. There's so many, the downtown economic area, the highway corridors, all the different aspects. That committee would kind of be the driver as to how we would move forward with a review of the current boundaries, because the boundaries, over the years, we've had population growth in various areas with new developments in various other parts of the municipality. So I think it's time that took place.
Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Worship. Okay, so my understanding is the committee will be the one that sets up the contact with the community and the residents who give them the information that they direct council with. Is that my understanding? Am I reading that correctly?
Ms. Toma?
Through the chair to Councillor Fowler, is that yes, the ward boundary committee would be set up initially to look at, okay, what would be the benefits of a consultant or having it in-house? And then they would work with the consultant or with staff in one direction or the other to run the review, go through information, and then provide recommendations to council ultimately, just as any advisory committee would. And then it would be up to council. Most likely a presentation would be made before council. There'd probably be at least, I would think, 2 or 3 open houses in various parts of the community so that the public would be able to, in most cases, you would be providing, at least 3 different visions of how the boundaries could be adjusted to accommodate population, communities of interest, all the components that would, do a full review of the boundaries.
Councillor Saunders?
Thank you, Worship. Just a question. Is there any way that we can make sure that a resident from Sandy Cove area is included in this? Because there was a huge underutilized voting there.
I think Councillor Saunders isn't referring to the ward boundary review, but to the review to get the elector turnout.
And through the mayor to Councillor Saunders, is the Elector Engagement Advisory Committee, to me, would be a very exciting committee because we'd like to engage all, aspects of the community. So ideally, we'd have a member who would be in high school, in their last year of high school, who could bring that youth component and look at geographically whoever applies, trying to have representation across the municipality would be ideal.
Other questions? Councillor Richardson.
Thank you. Through you, exactly what I was going to say is that I really hope that this elector engagement advisory does have some consultation with the high school, because I think we're missing a lot of our youth that I think we can get them engaged in all parts of this, and maybe this is the start to get them to be engaged in our town. So I hope that we do reach out to the high school with this committee.
Thank you. Other comments? I have a few. I think it's not long overdue, but it's overdue. So if this is in place for 2016, 2026, it'll be 16 years since we had a ward boundary review. And as we all know, the town doesn't grow evenly in all wards, and rep by pop is an important fundamental relationship in our democracy. And we know the federal government's just gone through their riding review just recently. In regards to the Elector Engagement Advisory Committee, I should have asked for an amendment earlier, but if I can maybe just give some advice. So the Association of Municipalities of Ontario has taken on 2 special projects over the next 2.5, 3 years. One is the workforce development program to try to encourage youth and people to consider public community building and public administration roles for their future. There's lots of great jobs you can get in public administration, and we do have trouble from time to time filling positions. So getting young people excited about things like being a building official or a bylaw officer would really be helpful for us. And then the other big goal they've taken on is one called Healthy Democracy. So AMO's committed $2 million to those 2 projects. So if it was possible for the Elector Engagement Advisory Committee to latch on or piggyback onto the work that AMO is doing so that we aren't duplicating efforts, seeing they've already committed the $2 million, I think it would be helpful, and I think they'll be able to provide a lot of the foundational work for that group. And there also has been a number of resolutions from other municipalities. It seems to be a bit of a, right now, a kind of a theme is asking school boards to contribute towards municipal elections, because we conduct municipal elections for school boards and we get $0 from the school board for doing that. So that's just another thought. And yes, Ms. Thoma, any comments on that? No? Okay. So all in favor of the recommendation is on the screen. Did I have a mover and a seconder? I didn't? Okay.
We're on the consent list, so we're actually just moving
okay,
through.
we're on the consent list.
Kind of deviated a bit there, but
I really need a nap. All right, item C3, the 7th line speed limit amendment, repeal. It's interesting to me that shared on social media that this road is open now, and all the people who live on that road went, shh, don't tell anybody. Item C4, appointments to other committees. So we have 2 committees that we're recommending appointments for this evening. Any comments on that, Ms. Toma?
Just that the recruitment committee was quite happy with the number of applications that came in. It's a difficult choice, but we do create a matrix and try and filter through for not just heritage expertise, but also representation through the community geographically. That's how you build a good committee is, people who have had prior committee experience, people who are subject matter experts, as well as, getting input from all parts of the community.
Thank you. C5, the utility company's shareholder review recommendation. C6 we've dealt with, so we'll go to items D. D1 we've dealt with, so D2, the South Innisfil Creek Drain update. I just want to say fabulous work, Jeremy. Thank you. So great to see this moving along, even slower than we had hoped because of the 400. D3, the 2022 annual corporate policy update. D4, the Innisfil Beach Park trailer washrooms. Deputy Mayor Fowler.
Thank you, Worship. I just have some questions regarding the pricing. When it comes to D4, we're looking at, for the washrooms, to revamp them completely, clean them out, mold, repair, revamp, $94,793.55. That it meets the accessibility requirements. If we were looking at purchasing them new, we're looking at $93,850. Now, my understanding as well is that it's going to take another $20,000 to $30,000 to bring it to code, accessibility, and not. Am I correct in that understanding?
Mr. Taviston.
Yeah, absolutely. Through your worship to Deputy Mayor Fowler. So for the option of the new washroom facility, that there was a few kind of various kind of options, obviously, throughout those that are enlisted within there, that they would meet AODA requirements with the current decking that's on site, but within the facility itself, it still lacked the AOD compliance that we currently have on site. So in our eyes, it wouldn't necessarily be the viable option without doing some other kind of modifications to meet those AODA requirements that are currently there.
Thank you. All right, that being the case, I'm looking at option 4, the one that the town is recommending, the portable washrooms. Define portable, please. I'm just wondering, are we looking at the Johnny on the spot like we have down at Leonard's Beach? Is that the scenario?
Through your worship to Deputy Mayor Fowler, that's correct, yeah. So this would be assumed through our current service contract with our portable washroom company currently. So we'll be looking to add the complement of washroom stalls that are within that facility that's currently decommissioned, essentially, with those 8 regular portable toilets as well as those 2 accessible toilets as well on site to meet those needs.
And my understanding as well is that the contract with Genco is being renegotiated shortly, or did I misunderstand that?
Through your worship, I believe that's correct. I don't know the exact timeline of that one, but I believe we are a year away from that contract expiring. So this will be able to at least get us through this year with a potential provision of next year, but I can't confirm for sure.
And one final question, if I may. When we're looking at $26,067 a year for 10 porta potties or portable washrooms, in that regard, when we look at the master plan, what is the time frame for the new bathrooms that are going to be built? Because if we're looking at something over 4 years, it'd just be more fiscally accountable, I guess, to revamp what is already in place. If it's something that's shorter that can save us at $25,000 to $30,000 over the 4 years, that's be something that, I just want to get a rough time frame, please, and thank you.
Certainly, through your worship to Deputy Mayor Fowler. So obviously we know that the Innisfil Beach Park implementation plan is currently ongoing. So upon kind of review, and I believe there's a report going to council here shortly regarding that implementation plan, where we'll kind of see what those next phases will look like. I know in recent review that
that remains pretty high on the priority list to do a design, build, and construction within the very short term. So we're looking at that to be within about a 2-year fix, hopefully. But again, we'll work that throughout that process.
Saving $52,000 is something I can get behind. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Councillor Waters.
Thank you, Your Worship. I had exactly the same question as Deputy Mayor Fowler had, so we're going to have porta potties throughout the park to replace a main washroom that we currently have, and that's acceptable for the huge numbers of people that we get in the park, and also considering that there's not very much shade in the park. So, making sure that these are all placed in proper locations, it just seems a bit extreme. Thank you.
Mr. Trevisan?
Through your worship to Councillor Waters. So the other 3 remaining buildings will still remain operational throughout the park. With this location, obviously being our highest traffic use, we are aware that obviously the portable washroom option isn't the most ideal, but the most viable option I think that we have on the table with kind of the current state that we're in. So in the immediate short term, it is, I think, the feasible solution I would suggest for us going forward at this time. I think that captures the question.
Councillor Waters?
Just a general comment. I think customer service is going to be busy.
Any other questions or comments? I have one, Mr. Trevisan. Is there a way to stabilize these now so they can't be knocked over? Because I just know that that will be an issue.
Through your chair, absolutely. So a part of those being placed on site, that they will be staked accordingly into the ground, of course. And then also to loop back to Councillor Waters' question as well, and comments as well, is that we look to obviously recognize that they will be quite busy. So we have added some additional cleaning as well on the weekends and emptying on the weekend as well. So that'll be 3 services a week, as well as my staff will also be engaging in our various cleaning practices that we do with the rest of the facility. So we do anticipate that they'll meet our expectations and standards in the summer months for sure.
Thank you very much. Then we'll move on to E. We have no bylaws. F, we have no correspondence for action. G1, the Innisfil Library Board minutes. And then we have the thank you letter from South Simcoe Police. And Purple Day for Epilepsy in Simcoe County is coming up on March 26th. Seeing no other comments. There is nothing pulled on the consent list this evening. So we don't have to resolve to committee of the whole. We need a mover and a seconder for the consent list recommendation, please. Councillor Saunders, Councillor Richardson, all those in favor? That is carried. And the rise recommendation is moved by, we don't need to rise, that's right, because we didn't go into committee of the whole. All right, so we have our motion, our other motion from Councillor Waters. Councillor Waters, item 10.1.
Thank you, Worship. This kind of goes along with the other motion I had for tonight was, during the first term, we'll all get hundreds of phone calls from residents to resolve issues, and most of them go very well. However, there are always a few where you go to bat for your residents, and I had about 4 of my residents end up getting legal notices from the town, and they automatically dropped their complaint because they didn't want to spend the money to hire a lawyer to challenge the town. So there's an old saying, you can't fight City Hall. Well, you can't, because the town is big, it has lots of resources, and I said this earlier, not that our legal department is being nasty or anything else, they're doing their job, they're protecting the town, they're protecting taxpayers. However, there are a few cases which I think would benefit from mediation or arbitration. We currently have a mediation program for neighbors who can't get along, so that we can't resolve it, we send them into mediation, and hopefully they can resolve the issue with a mediator. So what I'm asking for is for when there are legitimate, and these are very few that I had to deal with for over 4 years, that's 1 year, where, I thought the residents had a good argument to pursue the town, but they dropped automatically because they felt they couldn't afford a lawyer. So I would like to see some alternative opportunities for the residents to be able to engage the town on a more equal footing. So I'm asking for the staff to look into mediation or arbitration services that we could use on a contract basis like we currently do for mediation services between homeowners. So I just want to have the staff take a look at that, come back to council with a report, with a recommendation that we can take a look at, and either, we either agree with it or we don't. But I'm just looking to give residents who I think have legitimate concerns or issues, just give them some equal footing with the town. Because like I said, 4 times I said, what are you going to do? Well, I'm not going to get a lawyer because I just can't afford that. And if I lose, then I could be up for grabs paying for the town's lawyer. So I just, on those few opportunities, like I said, these are not many. The 1 a year is an opportunity to give residents an opportunity to be able to discuss at an equal level with the town their issue. Thank you.
Do you have a seconder, Councillor? Councillor Richardson? Questions or comments on this motion? I'll start. I can't get behind this one, Councillor Waters. I think our staff are pretty amazing. I think when I see some of the issues that come in, particularly to customer service, and they can be pretty nasty sometimes, the way they're worded, and I see the very professional and highly polite answers back, plus also the way that they're always trying to seek solutions. I understand what you're saying about getting a letter from a lawyer, and sometimes we have our legal team that does need to send a letter to residents because some things require a legal opinion. But again, always found them worded very professional, and so yeah, I would not want to spend money on having a legal team here and then also spending money to question our legal team. So I can't support this motion. Any other questions or comments? Councillor Waters.
Thank you, Your Worship. I understand your comments, but as I said, is that most of the complaints are satisfied through customer service in a very polite and professional manner. It's like I said, a very, very small percentage of people have some concerns, or they have an issue which would normally, these people can't afford to challenge us. And I just want to get, because like I says, everyone knows that you can't fight City Hall. The reason you can't is because we have all the resources, and we're supposed to represent the town. And I know the legal team, is doing their job in terms of protections, and they always are professional. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to, impinge on, the job they do. They do a job to protect the town, and they do it well, and they're always polite and everything else. It's just that I had, like I said, 4 issues where I thought that they had a legitimate concern, but they refused to do it because they couldn't afford to spend the money on getting a lawyer. And I think if we had, just like we were currently now, we have a mediation service which helps homeowners. I don't understand why we couldn't ask staff to look at. Well, all we're doing is ask them to look at. If we don't like what we hear, then we can kibosh at a later time. I'm just asking for a report that says, are there options? Do other municipalities do something to help their residents? So, like I said, it's a very, very small portion, and it has nothing to do with the way our customer service handles it, because they are very, very professional, and they always word things much better than I ever will.
Any other questions or comments? My only concern would be that I think that number would increase, because sometimes we are right. Sometimes the answer is no, and sometimes we are right. And I think in every one of those cases, those people would appeal. So I think those numbers would go from the 4 that you think you have legitimate to everyone that we said, no, we can't do that, or that's, if you understand what I'm saying. Anyway, we'll call the, go ahead, Councillor.
I will just say that mediation is where you try to get two people in a room and try to resolve it. So it's a discussion. Arbitrator is where it's a final. They can't take it any further because an arbitrator has designated an answer. So no, there's no chance of appeal. It is what it is on an arbitrator, and you know, the other option is a negotiated settlement between two parties. So there's no chance of this appealing, and there might be a few more, but I'll tell you, in all the people, in all the issues I dealt with, there was, like I said, there's only 4, and I will leave it at that. Thank you.
Councillor Drotch.
Through your worship. So when we talk about, you're talking about mediation and how we mediate residents, and we did that program. I think probably, I'm not in customer service, but I would say that half of their complaints are probably resident to resident. So I could totally understand why we would want to put mediation in that instance, because it's going to help two residents sort out their differences. You're speaking of 4 things you had over your 4 years of running for council. It's very small. I just don't know if we need to, you know, dedicate staff's time into doing those reports. I just don't know if there's a precedence for it. Thank you.
Councillor Saunders and then Deputy Mayor Feller.
Thank you, Your Worship. I personally have been through mediation and arbitration, and let me tell you, it is not cheap. Arbitration was $8,000 for a half-day session. I think our legal team supersedes all that. I won't be standing behind this one.
Deputy Mayor Feller.
Thank you, Worship. There are things in place with legal references that we can give residents without putting our staff into between a rock and a hard place. One thing I use when people say that they wish to take action because they don't feel they're being validated by the town, I always say get a legal. I don't have a legal background. I don't have the legal expertise, so I always send people to the Law Society Referral Service. It's simply a 1-800 number. People get a half-hour telephone call with a paralegal or legal from the local region who would probably know the situation, but I would, you know, they can give them, say, look, you know, this is justified, this isn't, and here are the options. They can move forward without costing them a cent, putting the town into a lose-lose situation. I mean, there are resources out there. If we can find them and give them to the residents ourselves, we keep that divide, which is important. Because, I mean, once we start saying, well, we have a legal team to enforce it, but now we have to have a legal team to question what we enforce, it just kind of muddies the water. So, I mean, like, there's ways to assist, but we can do it in a very clear, delineated way. And that we can easily find it. If we can do that, we can give it to the residents ourselves. Thank you.
Seeing no more hands, all those in favor of the recommendation? Those opposed? That's carried. Sorry, that's defeated. Oh boy, am I ever gonna, I'm gonna get through this? I don't know. All right, let's do announcements. Announcements, Councillor Drotch.
I have none to report from Ward 7. Thanks.
Councillor Richardson.
Well, just a reminder that there is March break activities happening. Also, and it's Ward 4, but it's at the Lions Hall on Sunday. They're having a Meet the Bunny event that's from 10 till 4, put on by Backyard Bounce and Dream Parties.
Councillor Waters.
I'll thank Councillor Richardson for boosting Ward 4, because I didn't have anything, so thank you.
Councillor Zanella.
Nothing this time.
Thank you. Councillor Saunders.
Just that the RVH jump is this weekend, starting at 11 till 1, and my staff have gone out and bought me an outfit, so I was told there's flamingos involved, but that's all I know.
Councillor Constantine.
the Royal Canadian Legion Branch 547 will hold a swearing ceremony for new members March 21st at 7 p.m. And there is a GoFundMe page for the Lefroy United Church that collects donation to save the church building and the Grange Hall. So if you would like to donate to this cause, you can go to the GoFundMe page.
Thank you. Deputy Fowler.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a few of them. Tomorrow, we are going to be swearing in Chief Van Dyke officially into his new role. It's something 3 o'clock at Town Hall I look forward to. I will be in attendance. Tuesday, March 14th, we are having another RVH event, a South Campus donation announcement. That's something, every dollar helps when we're building a hospital, clearly. And on Monday, March 20th at Town Hall again, we are doing a Ramadan celebration night. So we are going to be here, and I believe the Ahmadiyya Muslim Society will be present as well for anyone who wishes to come and meet the local residents. All right, thank you.
Thank you for that. Also, a big thank you to ICE Corp and all the partners for all of the winter weekends, but particularly for the record-breaking polar bear dip. Also, congratulations to the Innisfil Minor Hockey Association and the Bradford Minor Hockey Association. So the Innisfil Winterhawks and the Bradford Bulldogs have now partnered to become South Simcoe Storm. So it's a larger pool to grow from, so they're expecting to get more competition and more games going. Also, a big shout out to our Spartans in their inaugural year. They've made their playoffs. Their playoffs have started with Aurelia. They've played 1 game so far, I think, unless there was one tonight. And they're ahead 1-0 in the best of 7 series. I wanted to let everyone know that the Guildford United Church is back doing their suppers. They're switching it up a bit. They had a lasagna dinner last week, and on April 19th, they'll be doing a chicken dinner. And almost all of council, quite a lot of us went to the Ag Knowledge Forum at Windrush Winery. It was done, Ag Knowledge is done by Nottawasaga Futures. They do this event once a year, and it was really insightful, I felt, talking about agritourism, and there was some wonderful speakers. Today we had the International Women's Day event, and thank you to staff and economic development for putting that on. What have I missed? There's a volunteer appreciation date coming, so watch your emails. Shortly that will be coming up. And I believe that was all. So if there's any other thing from staff, I'm seeing nothing. So then we'll move for the confirming bylaw, moved by Councillor Zanella and seconded by Councillor Constantine. All those in favor? That is carried. And adjournment at 9:06 p.m. moved by Councillor Drudge, seconded by Councillor Richardson. All those in favor? Thanks, everyone, and thanks for staff, and thank you for former Councillor Sadi for hanging in there.